Welcome to Michael's Record Collection. I'm very excited today to talk about the music of Kevin Gilbert with Wayne Perez. He is the uh, host, I guess you would say, of the YouTube podcast about Kevin Gilbert's career, and that is called You Are Here, a Kevin Gilbert podcast. Wayne, thanks for being with me.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Doing great. I appreciate your time today, and I want to kind of just start out by having you tell me a little bit about your podcast and how people can find it, how it got started, that kind of thing.
It's a podcast called You Are Here, and it is about Kevin Gilbert, the life, times, and music that he was a part of. It's only on YouTube, and if you go to kevingilbert.com, you can click on all the links and subscribe and get in there. And basically, we talk about just everything that encompassed Kevin's music life. So we speak with producers and musicians and friends who knew him and kind of just get on the backstory and kind of get into their behind the scenes works. And we have some unreleased music that we play, some unheard gems, and we have actually a few shows in the can right now, but we've been holding back on a few of them just because of the content that we want to add to it, and some of the interviews that we want to, kind of square away and pack in there. So every show is packed with multimedia video, audio, everything like that. So YouTube is really the best place to check it out because each one is like a mini documentary, if you can, and just gives you everything, encompassed in one.
Yeah, I thought it was a good time to talk about Kevin's work because this album, The Shaming of the True, is about to come out on vinyl. It's going to be a limited vinyl release. It's not going to be a pre-order thing. You're going to have to pay attention and scoop it up when it becomes available. And I'm excited to get into the album a little bit with you, but I wanted to go back a little bit first and have you tell me, when did you become aware of Kevin and his music, and sort of tell me your origin story with Kevin Gilbert.
I first heard a Giraffe in the late 80s on Stone Trek. It was a radio show in Southern California, and it was syndicated to the Los Angeles market, and it would be on Sunday nights on radio station KLOS in Los Angeles. And they played a couple of Giraffe tunes one time, and I just kind of earmarked it. And then when Toy Matinee came out with their only album, their first and only album, and that started to get some airplay from Mark and Brian and their 95.5 KLOS show, that's when I really caught on, and that's when I became a fan.
And your involvement with Kevin's estate and all of that, take me back to the very genesis of that.
Well, I met Kevin a couple years before he passed, and I met him as a fan, and at one of his shows, just struck up a conversation with him. He introduced me to the rest of the band members, and we just kind of formed a friendship off of that one meeting. And I was a photographer, currently still am, and so I asked him if I could shoot some of the shows that he was performing at. So he said, sure, go ahead. I ended up sending him some photos of the performances, and he called me and he actually liked them. And that was a big compliment because years later, I learned out that Kevin, he was so critical of his photos, and especially live shots. So knowing that after it was pretty neat. So I started to work with him more and more with doing photos, and I was, at the time of his passing, we were working on fan club stuff, trying to bridge the gap between him and the fans, get more of a handshake, meet and greet type of thing going, more of a presence. His mind was so much into the music, he didn't think about anything else. And he had a manager, John Rubin, who was formulating all that. So we were all working together to try to come up with something that would propel him into the next level. So when he passed, then the estate started to archive all the stuff, all the recordings and everything like that with Nick DiVirgilio. And after a couple of years, I just basically took over that, and they did the core archiving, all the master tapes, everything like that. And what I did was I went in and started to piece everything together and kind of put the pieces where they needed to be. And we're still doing that, actually. We have a multi-disc Shaming of the Truth set coming out either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And about 6 months ago, I uncovered something that was a huge piece that's gonna it's integral for that. So it's gonna be very good.
Okay, so when you say a Shaming of the True set, you're talking about a live release?
No, it's a CD set,
A CD set, okay.
all encompassing, multi-CD set, going over basically from the beginning to the end of what Kevin was going through, forming this package, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. He started recording for this album, or at least the bulk of it was done in '95. How much did he leave in the can? Because it seems like he recorded a lot of material that he left behind.
As far as in the can, for what are you talking about? Unreleased music or from the Shaming of the True?
Yeah, but mainly from the Shaming of the True. But in addition to that, how much is still in there somewhere?
For the Shaming of the True, it's really hard to pinpoint how much is there from a fan perspective. From an engineer, audio, or archivist perspective, there's a ton of stuff. For example, A Long Day's Life, that track, I don't know, there's 20 to 30 different takes of it. And when I say takes, that's not individual takes like vocal takes. I'm talking about mixes, things that Kevin did, restructuring. There's a couple that have completely different drum tracks on it. So releasable stuff, that's what we're doing. We're putting all of that into something that can be released in a smart way. We can release a 10 CD volume, and 100 people are going to be able to afford that only. So we have to think about, number one, the audience, who's going to be purchasing this, who's going to want it. Is it going to be too much at once? Is it, it's all these factors come into play. I know all the fans, hardcore fans, are saying, give us everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible. You can't have a 14 CD set and every CD is 12 versions of each song. It's not going to happen. Right. So my job is to go through and see what the best of the best is, or what the coolest things are, what stands out, what maybe is so far apart from what was the final piece that people are going to want to hear this abstract piece that he started with. So but as far as other material that's available for other releases other than the Shaming of the True, it's difficult to say. We have a plan, and have had a plan for a few years on the end game, on releasing all the releasable hard media. When I say hard media, that means LPs, CDs, anything like that, before it heads over to the digital realm. Right now, only NRG and NRG Extended is available digitally. So it's I wish I could give you a straight answer. That's the thing. But with this, sometimes it's in riddles because of legalities. There's things in Kevin's vault that we have to make sure is legally available to release. Mm-hmm. And some things like Tuesday Night Music Club era, to get the release from everyone, it just wouldn't happen, and it would be just too astronomical. So fans just need to understand that we are doing the best we can with what we have and the resources we have. It's just not everything Kevin touched is owned by him. So that's the most difficult thing to convey to the fans. They think since Kevin was the lead singer of Toy Matinee, well, why doesn't the estate just release Toy Matinee? And it doesn't work like that. We released a cover CD this last year, and the estate does it the right way. They obtain all of the mechanical rights, all of the licensing, everything like that. Everybody who wrote on that gets paid. So there's other independent artists who they record like a Beatles cover CD. Now tell me that the Beatles get that money, and I'll be shocked, because when you go look up the publishing on those seem to be missing. Those titles seem to be missing from those. But do the Beatles come and find a person who's selling 1,000 discs somewhere? It's one of those things. So But with Kevin's stuff, it has to be done right, and that's the main thing.
Speaking of doing it right, and you mentioned the word a couple of times, releasable, and that is just really honoring Kevin and paying respect to his work by not putting something out that you know he wouldn't have wanted out there.
Yeah, one of the things when John Rubin, the executive of the state, and his manager at the time of his passing, when he started all these projects, the mantra that went out to everybody was, we're only releasing stuff that Kevin would have approved of.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very, very well taken in, the first 5-10 years. Since then, we've reevaluated a lot of things, and we've come to the understanding that if Kevin were around right now, John, if he were his manager, me, if I was still doing stuff behind the scenes with fan club stuff, what we're releasing now is what we would be telling him and what we would be recommending him to do also. So 20 years after Thud, we would be knocking on the door saying, yes, let's release a 20th anniversary and let's put demos in there. Now, Thud was released in 1995. In 1996, 1997, Kevin wouldn't have wanted his demos out back then. He would have just wanted that music out that was on the album. So there's a time and a place when it is appropriate to release it. Mm-hmm. You're wearing a Giraffe shirt right now. Mm-hmm. And we released a Giraffe box set, and in 2012 released the discs, the proper discs. And Kevin originally didn't want those discs released. In 1999, the estate released a compilation, Giraffe. It was a greatest hits. Mm-hmm. And that was actually made by Kevin. Kevin did that track listing. He left that with us, and because that was something he wanted. He was saying, I'm not going to re-release the Giraffe albums in itself. I'm going to release a compilation. Well, as the years got on and the demand kicked up and people were selling these original Giraffe CDs for up to $500 each, we evaluated and said, you know what, Kevin would have probably said, no, I don't want people to be spending that much money on my stuff, so let's make it available, for a limited time, and people can grab it when they can. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the the mantra that we go with. What would Kevin like? What would Kevin want? And we do that with the artwork. We do that with every aspect all along the way. We don't settle for sound quality, differences. We go for the highest, and that's why with the Shaming of the True 2 LP set that's coming out, it took almost 2 years to complete because we ran into so many obstacles, but we didn't settle for anything. We didn't go with the cheapest vendor because they could get it the fastest. We went with the people that we wanted to go with because they could produce what we wanted to. And we ran along problems along the way, but we jumped those hurdles, and I think the product speaks for itself, because when people get these and when they listen to them, I think they're gonna their jaws are gonna drop. And we have 2 versions coming out. One's a standard edition and one's a limited edition. Same music on both. We never deny the amount of music. That's first and foremost. If there's a standard edition, limited edition, everything comes with the same amount of music, so nobody can say that. The difference is what's packed inside. Just to tell you right now, the limited edition, it comes with a hologram sticker on the front that says limited edition. It's really nice. And when you open it up, in one of the photos, there's a nice little stamp, and each one is individually numbered. And a beautiful print comes with it, a press print. And these are pretty cool, Michael, because I don't know if you remember the old days of printing, when they used to have to actually pull the presses down, and there were plates and and they pull out the paper and that's how these were done. So each one's unique. Each one has its own stamp of ink on there, and certificate of approval, and they come in a beautiful envelope that's individually numbered, and also is an exclusive Shaming of the True beanie. So you can't get it anywhere else. It's the title, the Shaming of the True. So it's a really cool package, and the cool thing about that is it's only $99. That's the cool thing. We're not in it to ream the fans or whatever. They're actually getting a deal if you put everything all up against each other. And the regular edition, the standard edition, is $45. There's 100 limited editions and
Mm-hmm.
there are 600 standards. That's it.
Okay.
700 total.
Mm-hmm.
So if they sell out, and if a demand is there to get another pressing, we've talked about it. It could be re-released in vinyl. It wouldn't be in the same packaging as it is in this one. It would be a more bare bones package. This one comes in a triple gatefold, so it's 6 panels of artwork. So the other thing is, it would be probably about another 12 to 16 months out because of delays with vinyl production and everything like that you're hearing about everywhere.
Sure.
So that's it though. I mean, there's 2 packages to choose from, standard and limited edition, and get them while they can. And that's all I can say about that. It's just it's one of the most anticipated releases from Kevin Gilbert since his passing. So we've really taken, like I said, the care and time and effort to do it. So
when the estate puts something like this out, and for example, they put out the Thud release on vinyl as well, and they put out a few others. One of the things we hear sometimes is that this is going to be the only run of this item. When they're gone, they're gone. They're not going to be printed again. What goes into that decision in terms of when to say maybe there'll be a second pressing, and when to say this is definitely all we're going to do?
Well, with Thud, it was a one and done deal. Thud isn't owned by the estate of Kevin Gilbert. It's owned by PRA Records. So for years, John Rubin has tried to get it licensed, and it took a while. It took years and years. And I'll always remember that day when he called me and said, we got Thud. Because even before I started being an archivist for it, I was already assembling my own special edition of Thud. So once I got into the archives, the first thing I did was tear into there and go through Thud stuff. And it was a good idea to do that, because when John said it's time, I had everything ready for the most part. And so we knew that we could only get a certain amount of product out to the fans in a limited amount of time. So that's how we had to do it. And that's why the packages were released as they were, with CD and LP together and things like that. The business aspect gets in the way of the fan aspect. So sometimes the correlation between fan and business, it's very hard to marry them together to understand. So we try to do it as best possible. And the one thing that I always try to tell people is when we put something out, when the estate puts something out, it's with the best intentions. We've already gone through the whole process of, what can someone complain about? What can someone love about this? Yeah. What can they hate about it? And so we're ready. We're ready for it all, because we stand behind it. Because we would be here going like that to Kevin, saying, we stand behind your product. So now for everything else other than Thud, for Giraffe, for the Call Me Kai set, all that stuff, what goes into that is just supply and demand. The estate isn't a 24/7 operation. So, it's not Amazon.com where we can just pump out CDs once they sell out. You got to order 500 CDs to make it worthwhile. You got to order 1,000 CDs to make it worthwhile, or else you're shooting yourself in the foot. So a lot of these quantities are based off of fan interaction. It's, what will sell. And the funny thing is, we're talking about the selling like that. About 2 years ago, people wanted to start getting a lot of Kevin's music digitally. And in order to start that, we had to remove everything from YouTube. And the estate had pretty much turned its nose away from YouTube and ignored it for all these years. And so when the estate contacted YouTube and said to get rid of any unauthorized stuff, we got a lot of blowback. A lot of people were complaining, saying, you guys are killing off your promotions and stuff. Now I think people a couple years after have understood why, and they understand now. The YouTube channel is going full force. We have more membership. I mean, it's growing daily. The amount of content that we're putting out there is greater than has ever been before. We have unreleased music that's coming out on the YouTube channel, and unreleased video content. All of this wouldn't be possible with all of the other unauthorized stuff out there. Just got a message a couple days ago from a disgruntled fan who was saying, you guys have killed yourself by removing all this content from YouTube, and went on and on to tell us how it was the worst business decision ever. The funny thing is since we removed everything from YouTube, we have since sold out of so many titles at kevingilbert.com. And we found that so many people had emailed in and said, thanks for still having this in stock, like The Lamb Lies Down, I brought it, because they were going to YouTube and just listening to it every day. And now they actually got it, and they were, oh, it has artwork? Wow, cool, check it out. So yeah, it actually made people come to the store and purchase it. Imagine that. So people, have caught on to it. And since then we have sold out of a bunch of titles. And the thing is, when these titles sell out, now they're selling out and they're not being put back into print. And the goal is, the end game is most likely when the Shaming of the True multi-CD set comes out, that will be the last physical release, the last CD from kevingilbert.com. So it's not a marketing ploy. We're telling everybody, whatever CDs are out there, grab them now. If you need a second copy, get it now, because next year it may not be there. Next month it may not be there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I would like to tell people that are fans of Kevin's music, is that when the estate puts something out, it does have a tendency to sell out very quickly, and it doesn't pay to procrastinate when it comes to this stuff. I'm very happy that I got my giraffe shirt and my giraffe box set and that kind of thing, because like you said, when some of these products, when they're gone, they're gone. And if you hesitate and hem and haw about it, you're going to get left out. You have to go for it when it becomes available. And I think what this does is, Kevin's true fans aren't going to hesitate. They're going to get in and they're going to get them right away. And sometimes, I mean, the human element is sometimes we don't always have the cash on hand we would like to have. But I think that the estate has done a good job of advertising in advance of, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming, and letting people know this is going to happen. It's going to be limited to this number. Be ready. And so I think that people need to, to follow the Facebook page and pay attention to what the estate is saying in advance, because that can be the difference between getting an item that you really want and, getting left behind.
Oh yeah. And a lot of thought goes into this process. See, I'm a fan. I'm still a fan of Kevin Gilbert. And that's what a lot of people sometimes ignore. They think, because I have all the material here, that what more do I need? But I want the physical copy. I want to see it. I want to hold it in my hands. I want to go reach for it and put it into the CD player. And I just don't want to click on a digital file, even if it's, a greater sound quality. I want that physical thing because I want it to get out to the people. I want everybody to hear what I've been hearing. So, so I definitely want that, out there. But it's like a kid in a candy store. I get to make my own playlists, I get to make my own playlists and release it to everybody else. But it's always under the guise, like we said, of what Kevin would want. But yeah, physical releases, everything like that, grab them when they're there. It's not a ploy, as I said. It's not a marketing gimmick when we post something saying, something's about to go out of stock. It's to let everybody know, so nobody's shocked. And, KevinGilbert.com, it's not a huge marketing venture. There's not advertising that goes out globally and in magazines or anything like that. The word is out there as best possible, and that's all we can do. When people say, I didn't know that, the Best of Everything maxi single was coming out. I didn't know that Covers was coming out. Well, my main thing to tell you is, if you can just go to KevinGilbert.com every day and just click on it once, hit a refresh, maybe before you go to sleep, do the same thing. Maybe go to Facebook if you jump into Facebook and check the page. that's the best I can do, because we're really trying our hardest to get the word out there in every way possible. And like you said, we're giving advance notice to people. When we know the information, we're trying to let people know. It's kind of frustrating. We post stuff on Facebook, we'll let you guys know the date ahead of time. And people right away respond, well, what's the date? Well, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
well, when is it? All those come right after another, but we understand people are anxious and stuff like that.
Reading comprehension sometimes on the internet is not what it needs to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would second what you said. Just at least a few times a week, check out the Facebook page or check out the website, and you're going to know in advance what's coming if you do that. And then also, like you mentioned, when you're getting low on stock, I always see the Facebook posts about that, about we're down to the last few copies of this.
Yeah.
If you want it, please order now so you don't, miss out. So you are trying to get these in the hands of Kevin's fans, and that's an important thing that you guys are doing. And I think that for the most part, people are thankful for that. I think that they appreciate it. There's always going to be those people who have put it off and maybe get left out, and then they get a little upset, but really they're mad at themselves because they had plenty of advance warning in most of these cases.
And I'll tell you something. Let me just stop down and mention about pricing. People have criticized the estate for, as they say, gouging fans with some of the pricing, and it's a very delicate subject, because it's a boutique operation here. KevinGilbert.com, as I said, it's not an Amazon or a Best Buy even, or anything like that. So every step of the way is dealt with care. And as I said, we don't just click a button, say order, and put them on CDRs and just ship them out with with a simple sleeve or something like that. Everything goes with care. The estate's not making millions of dollars off of this stuff. If you add everything up, the shirt you're wearing, if you add up the production costs for that, we only made 30, 40 shirts. It was just to get them out to the fans that wanted those shirts. We didn't make 200 of them and leave them in stock or anything like that. But just in the last couple of years, we released the Giraffe box set. That was only $35. The Call Me Kai set was $25 for 4 CDs. And with all this, with packaging, and we released a couple of Thud shirts. We did a whole line of Thud 25th anniversary, shirt, hat, beanie, all this stuff like that. A couple of new Shaming of the Truth shirts came in stock. We did a Best of Everything maxi singles. So we're trying to put as many products out there for the fans to get the physical form while they can. It's not to make money. Each product pays for the next product. If we sell a shirt, that pays for the next shirt. You know what I'm saying? All of these fall in line like that. So the Giraffe box set sold out within a month. That enabled us to make the wallet set, and things like that. And so we knew the Giraffe box set would sell out. We just didn't know the demand to make the wallet set. So we had that ready to go. It's just these are the things that we're already thinking of ahead of time.
Right.
With this vinyl project, we already have thought about other things in the future. People question us and say, like, hey, how about this album? Would you think about doing this on vinyl? And we just sit back and go, yeah, we've already thought about all. There's nothing, I really can say there's not one bit of info that someone can suggest that we haven't thought about in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we really have turned over everything, and the last few years, that's kind of what we've been doing. Since Thud was released, we kind of went back into the cave and kind of figured out the end game for releasing all this stuff. So right now you are seeing the plan being implemented.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised that there's been pushback on the pricing, considering, I mean, if you go, even right now, if you go to Amazon, which is, a huge mega corporation that it can be a loss leader, it moves product, they order by the millions in some cases. If you look up the latest AC/DC album and see what they're charging for that, I don't think that these Kevin Gilbert prices are completely out of whack.
Well, it's interesting because, like I said, there's the people who they think it's out of whack because they don't buy physical product. So they're looking at a CD set, a giraffe CD set at $35, and they're saying, just give me the CDs for $10, digitally. So that's where we're trying to have to meet halfway in certain things. But it's a very difficult, like I said, it's very difficult to try to it's a seesaw. You just when you get the people who are happy, then you're going to get the people who are upset about it. But there's it's a small operation, that's all I can say, and we're doing big work. When this limited edition and the standard edition of Shaming of the True vinyl comes out, I think people will look at it and it's going to stand up right up against any Warner Brothers, any Sony product, anything like that. It's really top notch. We went in and for the first time ever since 1999, went into the lyrics and with a fine-tooth comb picked out every incorrect lyric and put every correct lyric in there. So for the first time, you guys are actually going to see all the correct names, spellings, everything like that for songs like Fun and Smash, everything like that. So it's going to be good. So I think people, when they think about cost, it's just going to be in the back of their head after. We are still going to be running crowdfunding. Now, I don't know if we ran crowdfunding items, and what it was we have a bunch of stuff from Kevin's archives here. Some things are products, some are his handwritten items, some are autographs, things like that. So they've just been sitting in the vault in the archive. So a couple of years ago, I went through and I kind of shopping cart, pulled things out, cleaned things up, checked them out. And so we've been through the years offering handwritten lyrics. We're going to be offering some track sheets from the actual master tapes, but we've had a product that's gone out of stock, the original giraffe CDs we've put, and we do it in a kind of an email in and fixed price, and we'll pick the amount that we have allocated. And so we've gotten some blowback on that because, some of those prices, we price them at collector market value. So test pressings, we're going to have Shaming of the True test pressings coming out. Those are going to be marked probably, around $400. But we don't just give you a test pressing in a standard envelope that it comes in. We make it its own product. We package it up. It has items in there that you can't get anywhere. It's going to have different garments. It's going to have something that you're going to look at and say, wow, this is one of 10 products in the world, and this is worth that. And we price it like that because, if we priced it for $40, $50, $60, we found people will take it and immediately send it to a secondary market for hundreds of dollars. So we're setting the price. We're setting the collector market value. And if you want to sell it at that price or more later on, it's up to you. But the estate's doing that for the fans because so many fans wanted, like I said, handwritten lyrics, or we did thud autographed LP flats, things like that from Kevin. And, where are you going to get an autographed Kevin item, 25, 30 years later? So
yeah, exactly. Excuse me. So Kevin Gilbert, Shaming of the True. This is an album that was released in, I believe, 2000. And I wondered, it's been released a few times. Which one do I have? It's the sort of digipack with no spine writing.
Right. That one's the foil stamp edition. And that one's the original mastering. And what happened with that, just so people know, is originally there was a set of discs that were ordered, and then booklets that were ordered, and inlay trays that were ordered, and they all got assembled. Well, we were talking about ordering quantities. They had to order a certain set of quantities, especially back in the year 2000 or 1999. So there was a couple of spindles left over of those. So instead of just keeping them in storage and just sitting there, we thought, well, why don't we put up a new little package and get it out to people? People wanted the original mastering, so there it is. The multi-disc set that comes out is going to have fresh mastering. That thing's going to be really, really good. So
is that the fourth time this album has been mastered?
I think it'll be the fifth. Wait, we got, if I can go by memory, I think it was year 2000, 2008, 2011, and yeah, this will be the fourth. So yes. So yeah, wow.
That's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, and in the You Are Here episode that drops around the same time that this one does, John Cunaberti and Nick DiVirgilio, they go into the efforts that went into doing The Shaming of the True, and John Cunaberti talks about the mastering and how he approaches each one and what he does, the differences that he does in it. So it's a pretty good episode. I think it's actually, I keep saying this every time I do an episode, but it turns into my favorite episode just because of, as a fan, I get excited again, and I know all these answers. I know almost, 90% of the answers that they give me, I know them already. But to have it in one episode and to be able to put all the multimedia content in there for the fans, the audio and the photos and everything like that, that's the package that I love. And that's, when I finish putting it together, it's not an ego thing or anything like that. I just look at it and go, that's for the fans. That's what Kevin would have liked. Here you go.
Right. Like when you put out your Nick DiVirgilio interview, I forget which episode it was, but you'll actually insert archival footage, rare footage you can't be seen really anywhere else, of Thud, the band Thud, playing in the studio, and that's really a unique treat for Kevin Gilbert fans.
Yeah, for years we've toyed around and we've got approached about doing a documentary about Kevin, and nothing seemed to hit the mark right. About 5 years ago, we were approached from a very prominent video director, someone who's been in the industry. I mean, you've seen videos by this guy from the top artists all through the 80s, especially. And it's just the timing's just not right. And the most difficult thing is you have to interview everybody for a documentary. You have to get in there. You have to talk to, all the parties, good and bad. So for those people to agree to it, to get in there, to do all that, it started to be an unsurmountable task. So I had the idea to then come up with You Are Here. We put everything into 30-minute to 1 hour mini documentary style interviews. And so we approached that and we formatted it. And like I said, we have about 3 years worth of formatted shows that are formatted and written and ready to go. About 4 of them are in the can. A few of them we're waiting on some parties to reunite with us, and things are looking good. So you will see a lot of these characters, and I say characters because they're characters in these albums, and you will see a lot of these musicians on You Are Here coming up this year, musicians that you haven't seen in interviews, that you haven't seen go. And that's another thing. We try to hit as many people who haven't done the interview circuit. There's a bunch of Kevin Gilbert musicians, colleagues who you've heard them. You've heard Nick DiVirgilio a ton of times. Well, we had to interview him because he was Kevin's right-hand man at the end. But we're trying to tap into a lot of people who were behind the scenes that haven't had a voice yet, who haven't had face or in camera time. So we're trying to give recognition to as many people as possible with as much time as we can.
Yeah. So this album, Kevin passed in '96 and had already been working on this album. Obviously, it didn't come out till 2000. But John Rubin, who's a friend and manager of Kevin, had asked John Cunaberti and Nick DiVirgilio to sort of finish, archive, catalog the music for the estate, a process that wasn't easy because sometimes there weren't notes or track sheets that were detailed. Can you just describe that process of what it was like for those guys to go into the studio and go through the tapes and find everything, first of all, and then to try to use whatever notes Kevin did leave behind on how to construct this album?
Yeah, they had a big task because Kevin wasn't good with notations. He wasn't good with leaving notes, with doing a lot of organized cataloging himself. So even when I jumped into the archives, you will find some giraffe music, and at the end of that DAT is all of a sudden something from Shaming of the True. from 96, and it's just because Kevin used as much tape as possible. He used, he flew things in from one tape or one console or one format into another. He got something on DAT and put it into multi-track and back and forth. And so they had to face a lot of this stuff. They had to go through and see what was usable, what wasn't. And in the You Are Here episode, we hit a lot of that, and they talk about how they weren't able to even listen to some of these songs for a year after, because they couldn't even get it ready to that point. They had to get them these tapes. They had to take them with care and take them to an actual audio facility and have them reconstructed. So some of these things. So it was a big task, and I've faced a lot of that with the archives. There's so many things in there that are just disjointed, that are out of place, that are recorded in one year, finished in another. A lot of the Shaming of the Truth started in the 80s, in the late 80s. So there's some tracks like that where Kevin would erase on the fly. So some of these mixes that we have, they're the only mixes in existence. So some were on cassette tape, some were on DAT, some were on two-track tape, but they had to do a lot. And when we released the multi-disc Shaming, how it's formatting right now is that the first disc is the Shaming of the True proper, as we all know and love. Disc number 2 is going to be the 1993 rough draft from Kevin in its entirety, untouched. I mean, we're remastering it for Sonics, but it's untouched. And then however remaining discs, we're still unsure however remaining discs, but those are going to be kind of like the Thud format, where they're going to be the track listing reinvented with different versions and alternate mixes. And there are unreleased songs on there. There are songs that Kevin had, and this is where my research through 15 years of doing it has taken us, is there's track listings in there that Kevin had that were, the best I can describe was they were written one place and continued in another. And we're talking notebooks. So I was able to marry these things together and to form the ultimate track listing with songs that people didn't even know Kevin had for Shaming of the True.
Yeah.
So there's multiple stories.
Wow. So Kevin, obviously he contributed vocals, guitar, bass, piano, keyboards, programming, sequencing to this album. There was still a lot of music that needed to be filled in, and Nick DiVirgilio plays drums, bass, percussion, guitar, keyboards, backing vocals. Brian McLeod also contributed some drums here. There's Tommy Dunbar, Russ Parrish, David Levita, Bill Buttrell, all contributing guitars. There's a lot of musicians involved with this. How much recording time really was required to finish off this album?
And we can't forget Stan Cody. He's been added to the credits. Stan Cody is a 11th hour addition, so that some of my research has brought that forth, and giving some of these musicians who they weren't overlooked. It's just we didn't know that they were on there. Kevin didn't tell us. He didn't have it written down. So, but they had to go in and re-record some stuff, a certain amount of things, and it was based off of their executive decisions about as associate producers, what do they need to do to flesh out the music. So when they had to go in and do, like Nick had to do some acoustic guitar, some bass, some drums, all stuff like that, they had to add more to Smash. Kevin had started Smash, and they had a rough working of it, and when he passed away, they continued it. So they spent a lot of time recording. Dave Levita did a solo on the way back home. Russ does his killer solo in Smash. So all these things were, after Kevin had passed. But as far as time-wise, it was over the course of a couple years. So, as they got to a track, if they needed to attack it, then come on in and play some acoustic guitar. Come on in and play, shaker, whatever it needed to be. So It's hard to pinpoint how much time. It's just over the course of a couple of years they had these people, coming in.
You mentioned a certifiable #1 smash. There's, I don't know how much you can really put into what's on Wikipedia, but the entry there says that there wasn't a usable studio vocal, so they used the vocal from the Live at the Troubadour release. You can even hear the audience responding to things that Kevin says during the song.
Yeah, no, and they definitely go in and describe that, but it's it lends itself to the song because the way the song is structured, that vocal actually stands out prominently with those, you can hear a couple of screams like you're saying here and there, and that actually adds to the theme of that song. Now, if that were if it was, for example, the Way Back Home or Best Laid Plans, something like that was a live version that they tried to take the vocals off, it may not have translated as well. I don't think. It's because of the content, the lyrical content. I think that was the best way that it could be done, and they hit it out of the park with that, I think.
Yeah. What I was curious about was when you get a song like Image Maker, and there's that part that Nick sings, where he comes in. Was that something that was already written by Kevin and not recorded? Was there a rough vocal that didn't work? Because I love the way Nick's voice just kind of flies in there and completes that song.
Right. Yeah. No. And that was another one of their executive, decisions that they made. Kevin did have a vocal in it. Was it a usable multi-track vocal that they could go in there and mess with? Were they able to go in there and grab it, and then it just didn't work with the other vocals that he had re-recorded over? I don't know, but it works, like you say, and that's the main thing. If Kevin's would have been in there, maybe that portion wouldn't have stood out to you or to other fans, and maybe that's what they wanted to convey, that little portion more than the rest of the song, or added to the song. So there's other things like the Way Back Home. Nick's doubling Kevin's vocals almost all the way through, and I bring it up again that multi-disc shaming is going to have some elements that your jaw is going to be dropped on, because you will hear the cold duck rap from Kevin. You'll hear a bunch of cool stuff, and I want to tell you it all right now. I want to say, because that's the fan of me coming out saying, oh my God, I can't wait till you hear this, but I can't pimp too much out because, the more I say, the more my email inbox starts rattling because people, oh man, come on, when's this coming out? When's this coming out? When's this coming out? So, I'm not someone who wants to hold this stuff back. I'd love for everyone to hear it right now, but, it'll come in time, and it'll be really cool. It's, this shaming of the true LP set, it's cool, and I'm excited about that. Every product that comes out, my eyes go big and everything like that. And as I said, it's a kid in a candy store right here. But all the content coming out this year, if people want to read something into that, all the content coming out this year is insanely good. And I'm not saying that because I helped produce it.
It's not a sales pitch.
No, because it sells itself. I don't have to, really, Michael, I don't have to put it up on notice and say, buy this. The amount of product that we manufacture for Kevin and the amount of fans that there are, it sells itself. However, we want to get the word out to the other people who are your friends, someone who maybe listens to this show that, I kind of heard of Kevin Gilbert, or, maybe I heard Steve Lukather or Mike Portnoy talking about him or something like that. So we want to make sure those people get a disc when it's available. That's the main thing. That's when they're available right now. And so that's our advertising, is grab it now, as you were saying, these one and done deals. So grab it.
So this story of this album about a musician named Johnny Virgil, and in the finished product, the album that came out, this is a standard tale of wide-eyed musician dreaming of being a big star, goes out to Hollywood, he's in LA, he meets the record execs. They're all, very welcoming and telling him all the things that he wants to hear. And then, of course, you don't need your band. We just want you. And how about if we change basically everything about you and just take what we want from you? And sort of that grinder that, sort of I mean, some stereotypes are stereotypes because they're true, because many musicians went through this, where they were put through this meat grinder of the music industry, and everything about them was lost, even if they were successful. And then in the end, they realize this is not who I am, and then they sort of. But that's the tale. It's an old tale, but is that, you mentioned like sort of other elements to the story? Was there a much bigger, broader story originally, or was it just different pieces of the story, and this was the most streamlined way to do it?
They went off of Kevin's last known track list. So what I've uncovered is probably a good at least dozen or so, 12 to 15 track lists of Kevin's for the Shaming of the True. I'm cautious on how I say it because a lot of this stuff's coming out in the multi-disc set, and so everyone's going to see it. But these track listings, some of them were done in play format with, scene 1, 2, 3. So he had a block of songs, scene 1, scene 2, and so on. Other ones were a different type of story, the same Shaming of the True storyline, but it went to different places. It had demos in it. It had more of his career involved in it. And Johnny Virgil, not Kevin's. It was,
Right.
More of Johnny's struggles. We have a version that's a very abrasive version that starts off with Parade and goes into a song called They Made a Monster When They Made Me. And then it goes into City of the Sun. And when you hear that version, it just slams your face. Because, I mean, Johnny's destroyed instantly. Johnny's destroyed right after Parade. So they made a monster immediately, and then the rest of the story is Johnny's story coming out of being a monster. So it takes you into different worlds. Yeah. So all that stuff's going to be, a year from now when we talk again about the multi-disc set, you're going to go, oh, I remember what you were saying. I remember that now. Yeah. Now it makes sense. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into every track, but there's definitely some album highlights. Parade is a very hopeful acoustic song. Johnny's full of optimism at the beginning, and like I said, he's going to be a star. City of the Sun is Johnny meets a has-been musician at a gas station. I love the specificity. Kevin doesn't just give you the generics. He's specific. He adds detail to the story. He calls it a Texaco. It's a Texaco station. All right. And it shows his brilliance as a lyricist with lines like, I didn't want to see him see himself in me. Love that line. Yeah. And that's a line that, I mean, most musicians couldn't come up with something like that.
Yeah, no, and the you said just those little elements, the detail, the old station bell that rings when you used to come into a gas station, when you used to drive, he includes that little bell in there when he talks about the Texaco station. Those little things like that, those are the key elements that make a Kevin Gilbert song a Kevin Gilbert song. Mm-hmm. And the lyrical content, of course, I mean, that's a Kevin Gilbert fan. You listen for the music, you listen for the lyrics, but you really get into those lyrics.
Yeah.
And that's something that you tapped into. And in so many of these Shaming of the True songs, you hear these elements and you listen with headphones. Oh my goodness, the suit fugue, you hear everything swirling around you. Long Day's Life, the piano, it's so beautifully done. You just hear that. The sonic elements that Kevin achieved were just fabulous. And what John Cuniberti did in mastering and extracting all those elements and honing in on those is just, it's superb.
Yeah. The phone machine recording at the end of City of the Sun is fantastic. A great touch. Again, tells the story. This obviously could have been a musical film. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that he wrote it sort of in screenplay or whatever format at times. The suit fugue, you mentioned, a very gentle, giant-like weaving of vocals. I'm I'm sure that every time I listen to that, I catch something different. It's just very complex the way it's all woven together. Johnny Virgil is already being in the process of being destroyed here. Image Maker even further being remade. I already mentioned Nick's vocal in the middle of the song, really making it a nice touch. Water Under the Bridge sort of is where Johnny is finishing the selling of his soul and just giving himself over completely. A very Genesis vibe in the final instrumental section there. I know that there's been a lot of talk about Kevin had an opportunity to become a member of Genesis and was in the running for that. What do you know about that story?
The old tale of Genesis, huh? The tale goes that John Rubin was running over to his apartment and sadly found Kevin dead to tell him, you got the audition for Genesis. Well, it's not true. It's a fable, and we're preparing a show, a You Are Here show, about the Genesis era. Kevin sent and had people send tapes to the Genesis management. He sent them to Peter Gabriel, and we have those letters, we have those tapes, we have all that stuff. We'll get into it more back then. I'm not trying to lead on or anything like that, but there's still a few people we need to just talk to and figure out a couple of pieces. He never had an audition for them. He wasn't going to audition for them per se. But they were well aware of who he was. So let's just say that.
And of course, Nick actually did play on a Genesis album, so there's a tie in there. The Best Laid Plans sounds to me like if Kevin hadn't passed, this song sounds like a single to me. Sounds like something that would have been released maybe as a single.
Oh yeah, I would have loved to have heard that live. That's probably one of the songs from Shaming that I would have loved to have heard him do live. I heard a couple of songs from Shaming the True live. At the end of the Thud tour, he did a few songs that weren't on any albums. I mean, at the end of the Thud tour, he was doing Miss Broadway. He was doing Pretty, City of the Sun, and Smash. Right there, those are 4 songs that were unreleased, and he was filling his shows with it. So the last few shows, they were just kicking because you just got some new stuff from Kevin. I really wish he would have done Best Laid Plans. Nick just said Kevin chose some songs that he just liked from Shaming, and they went with it. And they sounded different back then. City of the Sun was a little bit a different vibe, but yeah, I would have loved to have heard Best Laid Plans.
Yeah. The one that stands out to me and it is fun. It's an extremely cynical song. Johnny has sunk into substance abuse, and there's a lot of hangers-on that maybe aren't the best people for Johnny to be around, and that kind of thing. And it is a very pointed poke at a song that Kevin had a hand in writing, "All I Want to Do," which was made popular by Sheryl Crow. I don't want to get into any of the sordid details of their involvement, but there are a few songs in his catalog, in Kevin's catalog, that where his feelings do come out about their time together in Tuesday Night Music Club. What can you tell us of his sort of overarching view? And again, I don't want to get into any details, but his overarching view of that, the end of that relationship.
It's always funny talking about Sheryl Crow in Kevin Gilbert interviews, because you don't know which way it's going to go. You don't know if and it's nothing on you. Just you don't know how it's going to be approached. Because there's sometimes the interviewer will take their own personal approach to it and kind of lead you into that. They want to hear something or they want to. So no, thank you for giving me the forum to have at will. But Kevin had a lot of emotion for Sheryl, and a lot. What I guess how I should approach this question is from the archivist viewpoint, from not telling you what Kevin wrote personally in his notebooks about the situation, but maybe an overview of and an assessment of it. Maybe, you know, if I were a psychological major and just could evaluate him through his writings and through what I heard firsthand and everything like that. Kevin loved Cheryl, and they both had an undying love for each other. One that became unhealthy for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
An unhealthy obsession, not in stalker form, but just, you know, keeping appraised of what the other's doing musically in a competitive way. And that's unhealthy, because you're constantly measuring yourself with someone else. And it's okay if it betters yourself, but if it's bringing you down, then it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin's medicine was making a song. That was his healthy way to do it.
Right, his coping mechanism.
Yeah, he could do it in a song. So he did that, and there are a few songs in there. There's a couple of unreleased songs about Sheryl Crow that will not see the light of day just because of the state they're in. But there's nothing bad about them, if I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
They're a moment of time. They are a place in history. The Beatles wrote about each other after they broke up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you ask him about that now, or, you know, you ask Paul McCartney about it now, and no, I love John. You know, things like that. And people cope with things when it hurts, and they do it the way they feel they need to, and they move on. Unfortunately, Kevin's not here to move on. His feelings aren't here to be heard. So right now we only have Sheryl Crow. And the unfortunate part of that, if I may, is that a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, I feel, comes from the fan perspective.
Yes.
The fans have built up this wall that is almost unsurmountable from my side of things. Think about it for me. Wouldn't you want to hear Sheryl Crow on You Are Here talking about her time in Toy Matinee?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care who she kissed. I don't care who Kevin kissed. That doesn't matter for the music that I'm listening to or the history of their performances on stage. If that led to heartache in a song or a better song, great. But I just want that song, and I want to know about it. And because of this conflict and because of the strife that has been in there, it's been a battle, and it's, my job is 10 times and 100 times harder to do because of that.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that Kevin wasn't a saint. For all the things that people want to complain about Sheryl Crow for, and they have every right to do it if that's their opinion, but are they forming their opinion off of something that's based off of fact or off of just their emotion? And, you know, Kevin got rid of the Giraffe Guys to jump into Toy Matinee. We talked about that in the You Are Here episode with Giraffe. When Thud came out, Nick and Russ, and no longer did he have Toss and Corky. So this happens in the music industry. Why are people championing Kevin Gilbert against Sheryl Crow? It's because he's not here. It's because that's their hero. And I understand that. I totally get it. But enough's enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's been 25, 30 years. The main thing I want to say is Kevin still worked with Sheryl. They did The Joker in 1995. Kevin loved Sheryl. And so for everybody who wants to say that, you know, they may not have had a great relationship at the end, but what was formed and the songs that you're hearing were based off of that love and off of those relationships and that affection.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have gotten those songs if they didn't have that relationship.
Yeah. And this is why, you know, when I ask for an overview, it's because I care way more about the music than I do about the details. Nobody's hands are clean when it comes to, you know, romantic relationships, I think, you know, throughout your lifetime. So and I have seen some of the animosity from Kevin fans that blame Cheryl for many, many things and many problems, and many of the things that they see her as having held him back or have stolen from him, everything. And it's, to me, that's always been between those two. And we got the music we got from both of those artists. And when they were together, we got music from both of them. And that's more what I care about, especially in the context of this show. So you get a song like Fun, you get a song like Leaving Miss Broadway, and these are the things, I guess, the positive side effects of relationships that don't go according to plan, and most don't.
There's, and I'll straightforward. There's songs with Kevin and Cheryl, acoustic songs, full songs. There's unreleased stuff that can't see the light of day with people hating Cheryl and publicly saying all that stuff. So think about it. We approach her camp, and we tell them, let's create a partnership here. Let's get this music release that was made in 1991, 92. Let's get this out here. All right, let's do it. So now they come check out all our stuff. They go to the fan pages. They go, do their due diligence. And now they see, let's do a search for Sheryl Crow and Kevin Gilbert in all these fan pages. What's happening here? Oh, recent talk. What's all that? Nope. We just don't want this negativity. Goodbye. Yeah, that's kind of what we're faced with, Yeah.
So there's a lot of toxicity online about it.
And it doesn't need to be. It's, in other words, why do you still need to talk about anything from that? It's just talk about the good music. Just talk about those times. Why do you want to why do you have to bring up any of that pain or any of that stuff like that? It's just, it doesn't make sense. Do you still want to talk about a divorce you had 20 years ago? Do you still want to talk about that marriage that you had 20 years ago that you're no longer in? No, get over it.
Yeah. I appreciate you answering that question very, very thoroughly and thoughtfully, Wayne. One thing I didn't mention about...
Well, there's a lot of stuff that if people would just would think about it and not go forward with the passion, and if they thought about it before they typed it out, before they wrote it, I will say there would be a lot more Kevin Gilbert music released. And that's not because of the estate. Mm-hmm. That's because of other parties.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and some of the parties that you mentioned earlier, you like to do or the estate would like to do a Kevin Gilbert full-length documentary, and one of the things you're going to need for that is to get parties involved that, if the fans are going to create problems, you maybe aren't going to be able to get those people.
Right, and it's because, some people may say, well, it's only one or two vocal people are ruining it for others. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the internet. Those one or two vocal people get shared another place, and it just permeates. And so, at a certain point, you just go, do we want to deal with that? No, let's go to something that we know is going to be more positive. Let's go to something that we know is not going to have a problem. Yeah. So, but you're missing out on Tuesday Music Club. You're missing out on 2 years of Kevin's life, 2.5 years that could be touched and broached, and we could have music from that, and possibly music. I'm not saying it would be, guaranteed, but we would be able to have those conversations with people and be able to sit down and be one big happy family. To just step down, Kevin had repaired his relationship with Patrick Leonard. In Kevin's notes, there's in his diaries and his journals, there's meetings that they had. They were talking about bringing a toy matinee or doing another project. Kevin saw him at I think it was a Pink Floyd concert at the Forum in LA, and just like, oh, there's Patrick, hey, this and that. So it wasn't like there was just, after 1990 there was just a separation and I don't know who you are type of thing. So there were things going on behind the scenes that people aren't aware of, that are relationships that were still that were still being connected. Like I said, Sheryl Crow in 1995 doing the Joker with Kevin, that's on our covers CD, and people are shocked and going, wait a minute, he was working with Sheryl in 95? It's like, yeah, think about it. I mean, put it all together.
Yeah, you gave a great example with the Beatles. Sometimes time fixes that stuff, and what Kevin didn't have was time.
Well, what I feel, the things that I thought of in 1996, I put them up to me now, I probably don't think the same way.
Exactly. We all go through changes. We're a work in progress. Everybody is. So, one thing I wanted to mention about that I love about Certifiable Number One Smash is the the sort of monologue where he's describing the music video, and he's very pointedly satirizing Madonna's "Like a Prayer" video. Just brilliant the way he does it. And I just wondered, since you knew Kevin, had you ever heard of him talking about that particular video? Because it was a very controversial video when it came out.
Well, we talked about that song actually, which is pretty funny. No one's ever asked me about that. I don't think I've ever told anybody about this. At the Troubadour gig back, the last Troubadour show he did, and I think it was October in 1995. I just went as a fan for this one. I went as a friend actually on this one thing. I didn't bring my camera. I didn't do, I just went and he invited me to the show. Backstage after, I started talking about Smash because he played it that night. And so I said, you described Madonna's video, and we're sitting there and Jonathan Brooks performing down there, you can hear all this stuff going on, and Kevin's just going on and on. It's so excited that I realized that it was Madonna's video, and he was talking about it, and he said, yeah, he goes, she's probably going to hate that. And so I don't know if she's ever heard that description, but it's pretty funny. So yeah, I did talk to him about that.
That's great. So there was a lyrical foreshadowing to the Way Back Home in From Here to There. The album then kind of completes Johnny's sort of journey with you go through the ghetto of beautiful things and A Long Day's Life. Johnny becomes this world-weary guy who's starting to identify that he's not the person he was. And The Way Back Home kind of talks about that a bit. And then Johnny's last song comes after the fact. Johnny is out of the business. He's older. He hears his songs on the radio and that kind of thing. And that's also a callback to Parade. What I think was interesting about Johnny's last song was that the story goes that Kevin went outside the studio on the street to record it. He recorded actual rain and the train whistle himself. What do you know about that particular track?
All the rain and train whistle, they're definitely in the archives. That rain goes on forever. He did a lot of sound effects like that. There's some people, if you ask other musicians who worked with him, they might tell you about the lawnmower cricket. There was a cricket and lawnmower and garden studios. That's Kevin's studio. And, it's probably a different cricket each time, but you're doing a recording session and you hear this cricket. And it was on to go find that cricket, because that cricket's going to mess up your recording. So if you're doing a piano, all of a sudden, you hear this chirping, you got to find that cricket. So Kevin recorded the cricket one day. So there's some cricket sounds and all that stuff. But basically anything that he thought was interesting, he recorded to use or not use. There's a bunch of stuff that's in the can that he just never used. He used sound effects, and he used interludes and monologues to join songs in Giraffe albums. Stuff that was laying in the studio, prior. But as far as that, the cricket noise and the rain at the end, those are effects that were applied, and there are versions without that are just clean, and we'll get to that, with the multi-disc set. But there's you were mentioning Smash. We also have a version coming out with a different monologue. It was done by comedian Bobby Slayton, and he went ahead and did that. Came into the studio, came into Lawnmower and Garden, and did that, and it was virtually unused, but it will see its home with the multi-disc set.
Oh, it's interesting. So Johnny at the end speaks from experience when he says, "Believe in who you are," and brings this whole story to a close. Really an enjoyable album. Do you, Wayne, have a favorite track from Shaming?
Yeah, but ask me tomorrow and it's different. I get asked this probably the most, what's your favorite Kevin Gilbert song? And then what's your favorite song from each album? Those are probably, and I used to be able to pinpoint it, and I used to be able to fly off and immediately tell you. Caviar was my biggest Kevin Gilbert album to listen to. That was Thud is my baby, what I call it, because that was my home. I shot photos in and around that era with Kevin. Thud was my baby, but Caviar was the daddy. That was the guy. Doing all this archiving, I can't pick a favorite one because each one has become it's an adopted kid for me. They're Kevin's babies, but I've adopted them, and I can tell you why I love certain songs, but it's becoming more and more difficult to pinpoint what my favorite song is. For shaming, I suppose it would be Best Laid Plans, mixed in with Water Under the Bridge. And those are just because of what I've been archiving and what I've uncovered and what I've gone through with this. Like I said, it becomes personal for me at a point because, I'm not fighting to put a song on there. I can choose that song and put it on there. What I'm fighting with is, why can't I put the other songs on there that are just as good? So it's really, I have my own, personal favorites and stuff like that. But, years ago, Ghetto of Beautiful Things was my favorite from Shaming of the True.
Yeah.
So it's a wide range. When the multi-disc set comes out, ask me then, because I'll tell you what my favorite song is then that I can't tell you now. But I think everybody is going to have new favorite songs. And not saying that what the shaming we know isn't pure and good, but I think after having it for 20 years, when you hear some of these other songs fresh and new, I think they're going to come into your playlists and have a new home in it.
Yeah. As someone who knew Kevin, was a friend of Kevin's, when a new product gets released, how do you feel about that? Is there a sense of pride that this is finally coming to light?
Yes, but there's also an emptiness because it's difficult for me because it's probably the most, I don't know, I can't say it's the most difficult for me out of, John and everyone who does the artwork and the audio and stuff like that. But for me, this was my job for Kevin. My job was to present him with things and get his approval, get his attention, and to guide him towards the fans with what I thought would be worthy. Not, and mind you, not what I personally would like, but what I think overall the fan base would like. And that's a fine line because I can't choose just what I want to do. I have to look at it on what the overall fan base would like as a whole based off of the criteria of what Kevin would do. So presenting a finished product to Kevin, we can't do that. All I can do is hope that he would like it. And we start off by doing that, as I told you. But when the finished product comes out, it can be emotional, and it has at times because, when Thud came out, Kevin wanted that on vinyl. I mean, he made the album in album length for vinyl. So it was bittersweet having it, and it's emotional at times. Getting the Shaming of the True when they arrived and I started opening them, I had to stop because Kevin's not here. And you just have to kind of take it back, a step and kind of go,
Sure.
just kind of just hold kind of like that lump in your throat and just kind of move on. So, and it's difficult. It's difficult when it's difficult for me because I have to suppress that emotion and sometimes that pain, when we're doing these episodes of You Are Here, because I have to step out of my own personal, convictions or my own thoughts and stuff. And I have to go, okay, straightforward. I'm the newscaster here. I got to, present this and, you just got to be straight, but it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult tapping into some of the relationships with some of his colleagues. Some are still don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And some want to definitely talk about it now, whereas they didn't want to talk about it 20 years ago. So it's very emotional in every aspect. And, it's just difficult at times, but I think he'd be happy with everything that we've done. And that's why everything is produced as it is. And that's why there's not 400 t-shirts and 700 hats, and there's not a pen set, and there's not action figures, and there's not, there's not a whole promotional gamut going on here. We're trying to get everything out that Kevin would have wanted and that the fans like. So
Yeah,
I think he would be happy with the legacy that's there.
yeah, I think so too. So as we mentioned, sometimes these Kevin Gilbert products they go and then they don't come back. Is there anything right now that you can tell us is getting scarce that people should jump on if they want it?
Caviar. I can't. Caviar is the stepchild of Kevin's catalog. It's the most abstract. It's the most tongue-in-cheek, the most satirically comical, and it gets overlooked because of the foul language at times or just the abrasiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Some of Kevin's fans aren't into the heavier music. But Caviar is one that, in a collector's standpoint, should be one of the most collected pieces of eras from him because there was so minimal. And there weren't that many discs made. And I can tell you, there's less than 20 left. So when those 20 are gone, there is no more Caviar as you know it. So that Thud is getting near its final. The Giraffe Wallet set, Call Me Kai, all of these are going. They're Call Me Kai has like I think less than 50 units left or something like that, and Giraffe has under 100. And these are just they're constant sellers since the resurgence of Kevin in the last couple of years, whether it's through the pandemic or our structure of getting all this music out there. We had this plan. We had this going forward that we're going to do this. We're going to release this. We had the end game going on the physical media. So the last disc to come out will be Shaming, but definitely I think Nuts and Bolts sold out already. Grab what you can. But yeah, Caviar is probably the one that you want to grab if you haven't grabbed, or if you need an extra copy of it, grab it. Like I said, I don't care if you grab 5 copies. It's not about the sale. It's about ensuring that you're going to have actually that music in 20 years.
If you're out there trying to tune people into Kevin's music and you want to give something as a gift, that's important too. That's something a lot of people don't think about when they buy their records and they buy their CDs. It's like, yeah, I got my copy now, but at some point you may want to pass along another copy to someone that expresses some music or some affinity for the music. If you're in the car listening to Giraffe and they ask about it, a friend of yours asks about it, you say, oh, this is Kevin Gilbert's band. Let me introduce you to more of his music. And then you won't be able to actually do that if you haven't made that purchase.
And we released the Best of Everything. It's a CD maxi single. And some people balked at that and said, well, what are you doing releasing a CD maxi single in the year 2022? And we just thought about it, and it was something that we came up with, if Kevin was around, we have these songs, the Best of Everything, this pop demo and this instrumental. They're different in itself. So why don't we release this? Because Nuts and Bolts is out of print now, and that had the Best of Everything. So let's put this song on there because we're not going to be able to highlight it anywhere else. So instead of just releasing it in a digital format, why don't we take the time, make some packaging for people, put in some handwritten lyrics, reproduced from Kevin, and give people an actual product that they can have. We numbered them, we put a nice little hologram sticker on them, so people just get more of a professional product with that, more value for your dollar, and priced it at $8. And those are kind of what I call stocking stuffers. Those are things that when you go and buy your Thud CD set or your Shaming of the True vinyl, those are ones that you're going to put in the cart. And they're not for everybody. We don't expect every Kevin Gilbert fan to go out there and buy something like that. But for those who want it, there it is. And it's the estate's doing this type of thing for the fans because they don't need to release a CD maxi single. The estate could have just locked the door and said, thank you for your time. Yeah. But they're putting out as much as they can. It's not to make the top dollar. It's to get the music out there.
Yeah. I can vouch for the giraffe quality of the music for that. I recommend you picking that up. Shaming of the True comes out. This episode drops on I think the 24th. I think right around then is when you guys will be releasing the 2 LP vinyl version of Shaming. Like you mentioned, it's a 6-panel gatefold, very high quality vinyl. You get the special edition that's 100, limited to 100, and then you said 600 of the regular.
Yeah, 600.
So that's not a lot. That's just
Now,
700 copies.
The limited edition. The one thing about that is that was all hand assembled. I mean, 100% of the way. Everything, the stamping on there. You get four numbered locations in there. You get the LP that's numbered, you get the envelope that's numbered, the print that's numbered, and the certificate of authenticity. All that stuff was assembled by hand. So it's a sweet package. When you see all this stuff, it's going to be cool.
All right. What size frame do I need for the print?
12 by 12.
Okay.
And okay, so a little backstory on that real quick. Back in 2011, Shaming of the True was released in a 2 CD format that was in a 12 by 12 format. In there, they had 14 12 by 12 prints from John Seabury that were the storyline of the Shaming of the True. So when we did this package for vinyl, obviously we had already released the prints prior. So I had the idea, why don't we do the talent print, the print that shows Kevin, thumbing his way, hitchhiking on the highway. So why don't we show that print? It's on, yes.
It's this one if you're watching the video.
So we've never had that in a 12 by 12 album flat. So John Rubin and Hugh Brown, the art director, did some investigating, and they did that. They found a place to do a print press, like I was telling you. So we did 100 of those. So if you have and this is what I'm saying about paying attention to the fans. The 2011 edition of The Shaming of the True has all those 14 prints in it. So now if you buy this this limited edition of the vinyl, you'll now get another 12 by 12 print. So this marries the whole thing together. So we think about those things going into it and saying, okay, they didn't get this print, they'll get it now.
All right. Shaming of the True. Kevin Gilbert, can't wait till the vinyl comes out, and can't wait for that Shaming expanded edition that will come out, you said, around the end of the year sometime, or maybe early next year. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Wayne Perez, where can people find you on the internet?
KevinGilbert.com. Just go there, and that's all I can say. Just hit that up. There's some fan clubs on Facebook for Kevin that I'm active on, and that's it. Other than that, go to Kevin's YouTube channel. You can get that through Kevin's website, and definitely tune into You Are Here.
Wayne, thanks so much for your time today talking about this album. An artist that is, on a wide scale perspective is criminally unknown, but those who are in the know when it comes to Kevin's music are very passionate about it. So I appreciate your time and your expertise and your background talking about this album today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Enjoy it.